Hello, good evening. The Queen of the Northern Jaguar Reserve, La Reina. I'm John Washington. I'm a local journalist, and I'm going to be framing a brief conversation and asking a couple questions to some of the people involved that are up here, and then going to open it up to have y'all ask some questions and make some comments, if you so please. I had the wonderful privilege just about 2 years ago to spend some time at the reserve. And one of the things that really stuck with me was something that Miguel, the wildlife biologist featured in this film, told me. He mentioned we were out checking a camera trap, and he mentioned that sometimes they will see jaguar tracks go right in front of their cameras, but the jaguar won't trigger the camera to actually take the shot. And it's because they are so smooth walking and so well camouflaged that our technology just can't keep up with that. And so I want to thank you, Ryan, for getting that footage. I mean, we saw how long it took, and we saw the multiple failed attempts and the effort y'all put in, so thank you for that. And I also want to thank the Northern Jaguar Project for doing the political work, for being there and creating that space and managing that space to protect the jaguar, and for creating that vast area of, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of acres, viviendo con felinos, surrounding it. And you know, what you're doing is you're protecting the jaguar. And so I want to thank you, Cholla, Dar, and Ben Wilders. Thank you for being up here. Thanks for doing that. And yeah, please. You know, it would be, I would say, the height of hubris to think that that protection only goes one direction, however. Because as the apex predator, as we saw described in this film, as one of the keystone species of these ecosystems of which, as human animals, we are a part, we depend on them too. And so the work that y'all do to bring their reality to life on the screen and to protect them down there is incredible work. So in sort of that back and forth protection sort of dynamic, maybe Cholla, I can start with you. And you've been working with jaguars and at the reserve for a while now. What have you learned from the jaguar? If you...
Okay. Well, is that better? Okay. So I've been with Northern Jaguar Project for about 2.5 years, but I've worked with animals my entire life. I've always been drawn to them, and I grew up here in Tucson, and my parents, were the hippie types, so I was allowed to wander around in the desert and just spend time with the animals and the ants and the lizards and everything. And I've gotten to know some animals very intimately, like dogs and cats. I was a vet tech for a long time. And I also worked at a wildlife rehab center for years. And I would say from all of those experiences, the animals have taught me to be present in the moment. It's something that humans struggle with. And when your dog greets you in the morning with that smile, it's because they're present in that moment. And so, more than anything, being on the reserve in such like a beautiful landscape where all the noise is gone and you can just be in that space and be like, yes, this is what life is about. That's what jaguars have taught me.
Thanks, Trey. You know, Ryan, I think you could hear it in the audience. You could feel like the breath catch at a couple of those scenes. Like, you know, and we're seeing it in incredible high definition, and this is, you know, a lovely, like, thank you to the Loft too for being able to display this and for hosting it. But I wonder when you're out there, what shakes your soul? Like what catches your breath when you're out there? What do you see? I mean, either from this or from the American Southwest, the previous project you did.
Yeah, so, I mean, you feel a lot of things when you're there. Does everybody hear me in the back? Yeah. Yeah. I like how I took the furthest one away.
This is clearly the better mic that I have.
Well, that's because it's in your hands, Jeff. The guy runs the place. He's going to take the best mic. I mean, there is no doubt whatsoever that when you are in a place like the Jaguar Reserve, and you know there's jaguars there, like you've been there, you know, it just feels different. When you're around predators in general, it feels different. Anywhere in the world, like this is something that we've evolved with. We know something is not off, but we're definitely more alert. And especially down in the Jaguar Reserve, like it's so breathtaking and beautiful, and the smells and everything, like it does transport you and gets rid of all the noise, despite how incredibly loud nature is. Like when you're actually sitting in nature, it's an information superhighway is what like we call it. Like there's birds talking to other birds, and the mammals are picking up on what the birds are saying, and everything's so connected. So like the feeling cannot be expressed on a screen as much as we try, and we, you know, like scoring a film super important, the music and the sound effects and everything. And when you hear the breath and you hear, I can't do a good Jaguar. Thanks. You know, it does bring, like watching this again, like I get transported every time back to the reserve. I've been fortunate to be down there quite a few times. I can't wait to go back again. And like that feeling is just so hard to express on film. And as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, so much of our job is to, not everyone can go there. Not everyone can go to these wild places. Not everyone is going to get the privilege to see a jaguar in the wild. And our goal really with filmmaking in general is to bring you to those places so that you know they still exist, and we need to keep fighting for them, so you can, if you get a little feeling from the screen, is just as powerful as having that feeling there sometimes. So.
Ben, could you catch us up a little bit? I mean, given that, you know, 50 years ago or so, or even more recently, there was near extirpation of jaguars here. In the past just 6 months or year, we've had like relatively a flurry of traffic of jaguars and other big cats. Could you talk to us a little bit about what we've seen here, and then also maybe like what the current population is like in northern Sonora and at the reserve and nearby?
Sure. So, yeah, thank you all for being here, first of all, and supporting this work. It's been exciting reading the newspaper recently, and just before the new year, the ocelot sightings, you know, Cinco, right? That jaguar has been featured a couple times in the over in the Whetstones and the Huachucas, and yeah, I think so. It's remarkably they're here and quite present. Several individuals, all pretty much lone males, has been the case for recent decades, which is kind of makes a lot of sense, right? At the very northern fringe of their range, lone males kind of doing their thing, going out and searching around, and it's all about that source population that's just to the south, where the reserve is. That really is that northernmost range of that breeding population, and we have right now about 14 individuals. How many females? 15 individuals, 8 females at the moment. When we were down at the reserve in October, we went to El Guapo's home range and saw pictures of him there. They're there, and also really interesting, so the reserve is about 70,000 acres. The Viviendo con Felinos Partners is about 130,000 additional acres. In the last year, there's been more jaguars photographed on the Viviendo partner ranchers than on the reserve itself, which it's working. This is freaking awesome. So yeah, that's kind of where the snapshot is right now.
Great, thank you for that. And then just to kind of get us all to speed, and let's go to the audience. Could one of you talk a little bit about, a lot of this film was also about the threat to the Jaguar, and one of the principal threats is the wall. This was shot, I don't know, as recent as 6 months ago, or maybe even longer ago than that, a year ago.
2023.
2023, okay, so where are we at?
Films take a long time to make, okay?
Where are we at? We talked in September, and that was when they were blitzing in construction in the San Rafael Valley. What's left that's not walled off?
Yeah, I'm definitely not an expert on this. I mean, there's 15 people in this room that are an expert on what's going on. 50 people more. This is Tucson. But I will say that it's gotten worse since we filmed this. There's been explosions going on every day since August, at least, and beyond, blowing up different sections and new border wall construction going in. I don't want to make it that, like, oh, we're screwed kind of thing also, because I know it feels like that. And I kind of, what I've been telling myself, at least, how I can sleep at night, like I go to these amazing places, I see what's possible. I see, like, also the beautiful mountains that we have on our side of the wall, and know that there's jaguars there and that there could be more. And I just kind of have to tell myself, like, within my generation, we've extended the border wall tremendously. But I also like to tell myself, and I've heard other people say, within a generation, you can also take down a wall. And like, that's what I think every nonprofit in Tucson, a lot of them are really focusing on. And I'm not saying that, like, that's the point we're trying to push here, but I think it's something, like, to be hopeful for. Like, we have to keep places like the Northern Jaguar Reserve and other Borderlands regions just well funded, so that we have that opportunity, if we do get that opportunity in a lifetime, to take down the wall or modify the wall or create wildlife corridors throughout the wall. And that's, if we do that work and the projects that exist now slowly fade away because of this wall now, like, that's a waste of all the work that everyone's doing. So I just, like, want people to remain hopeful at the opportunity. Like, we have a shitload of work to do. We always will. Like, this is just how it is in the natural world for us to coexist. And I just want us to kind of remember that, please.
Well, besides, before we open up, I want to let you all talk a little bit about how you can support y'all's work. So besides coming to the Loft that screens films like this, or getting excited for your next film, or recommending this or the last one, how can people out here support Northern Jaguar Project, or Finfers, or the Loft?
Well, I think there's like 5,000 nonprofits in Tucson. So, of course, we want your support at Northern Jaguar Project. You can look at our website. We take all different forms of donations, but really pick what calls to your heart, and support it. I mean, we're not the only ones protecting jaguars here in Mexico or worldwide. So, but you can always call me up and ask me a million questions, and I'll convince you to support us, because I really do believe in what we're doing. But partnerships are important too. I just spoke with some of our friends at the Wildcat Research Center with the U of A, and Cinco was just seen last weekend here. So, I mean, these animals are amazing. They're finding a way, despite all the construction and everything going on. They're still here. So, yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Would people like to ask these folks some questions? If so, Jeff's going to find you.
I have a mic that works. Maybe it's just me that's
Surprise,
making it work. I don't
surprise,
know.
Jeff.
Here's
You do pay the tech here.
Hi, thanks. It was outstanding, amazing. Yes, worthy. I read recently that unfortunately in the areas where they don't have a wall, and some of these areas are a lot harder to get to, they're now putting circular razor wire in there. And that just seems to be horrific because you can throw a blanket over there to get over, but the animals don't throw blankets with it. I just can't imagine. I don't know if you've seen, when you've been out, evidence of animals getting trapped on that razor wire. I think they just started doing that, so that's, anyway, I appreciate everything that you're doing, but it just seems awful.
Yeah, and I haven't been down to the area in the last probably 3 months or so, but in all the years of going to the border, like carcasses along the wall is a common thing. The razor wire stuff is insane and just dumb, like pretty much the whole thing, but that is something that will, there's been photos of it. I've seen some stuff of animals stuck in the barbed wire and things like that, but like go along the wall, it's full of carcasses and not just animal carcasses. It's a devastating place in many ways.
We have a question back here.
I have a comment. I would just like to remind people who are here that one way that something we all need to keep in mind is that change starts on the local level. We all have to keep our eyes on things other than the wall as well, copper mines and other projects that are helping to destroy our environment. So make sure that your friends, your relatives, especially the youngsters among us, get out and vote.
Thank you, Thomas.
Now here's a young person right here who's gonna save this Q&A. Okay.
Okay, so I actually have 2 questions. One of them is I've kind of been wondering it throughout the whole movie, like how do you know where to put the camera traps to find the jaguars? Like, do you just like try one spot and then like another spot, or do you just kind of like use like drones or something to like scout out? Like, I've just been wondering that throughout the whole movie. And then my second question is like, how do you get into this kind of business? Like, do you just get to do it? Or like, it's like, how do you get in?
Business is a questionable. Yeah, that's a question. If you're trying to make money, first off, thank you so much for asking a question. I really appreciate your courage to stand up in a room and ask that. So thank you for that. How do you find jaguars? I don't know. Like, that's the truth. We're always trying. We're always trying to find wildlife. And in wildlife filmmaking, all too often it's not highlighted, but really how you find animals in pretty much every feature film you've ever seen, or Discovery or Nat Geo stuff, it always comes back to the biologists. It always comes back to the researchers, to the NGOs, to the agencies that are out working there every day, are dedicating their lives to it. I mean, we would have absolutely never gotten a shot of a jaguar if it wasn't for the folks at the Northern Jaguar Project and on the Northern Jaguar Reserve. I mean, you need the experts. I mean, you saw there was a clip in there where, you know, Ben's talking about how Lockheed's like, this is a good spot for a for a camera trap. A jaguar will cross here, and the last time it went was 6 months before that. You know, like, this is what you don't see is we only go to like 100 days, but we had the camera traps out there for 250 days, and we got maybe 20 shots of a jaguar. And like, it's not easy. And like you said, like, they'll walk in front of a camera and it won't trigger. I mean, they're so stealthy, and they just know too. For the first 70 days, really, I think our timing's off on that. It's easier to round up for people around down. But like, for the first 70 days, we had we'd have them on our research cameras, and then you'd see their tracks come up to our tripods with the nice, expensive cameras, and they would just walk right around them. So like, we have tons of research footage of them, but not the high quality stuff. So that's really difficult. In terms of the business, love it. for me, my background's in wildlife conservation. So I studied here at the University of Arizona, and I got a degree in wildlife conservation and management. What's up? And then I went on to do a master's degree in South Africa. I thought, oh, Africa, that's where you have to go to like do all this kind of stuff and be a biologist. And I was so completely wrong. Our backyard here is incredibly diverse and more diverse in many ways than the entire continent of Africa. So just my background comes from the biology perspective, and I think that translates into the films we make and how we tell these stories, because we really love to highlight the people that are behind it. And then the way to actually getting into film, pick up a camera and tell the story that you want to tell. It doesn't matter what camera it is, it doesn't matter the story, it's your story, tell it how you want it to be told, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise.
I can elaborate a little bit more on how to find jaguars for you.
Just go to the Jaguar Reserve.
I mean, really any animal. I mean, first you want to learn about their biology, like where do they like to travel, what do they like to eat. And anywhere in the desert, if there's water, there's going to be animals. So, and then the next skill that you can start developing even right now is just being aware of your surroundings when you're outside and looking for what they call sign. So tracks, like footprints of animals, scat. Before working for NJP, I worked for Borderlands Restoration Network, and I set all their camera traps on their reserve. And so I would follow the riparian zones, I would look for scat and tracks, I'd find like water holes and set up cameras there. And sometimes you just get a feeling, and I got a feeling I knew where there was a mountain lion, and I put a camera there, and it took a year, and then we started getting pictures of the mountain lion. So just remember, you already know how to do this. Like, you are an animal, you can find other animals. So it's just a matter of like honing those skills and paying attention to what's around you.
Before we go to, I think we have time for one more question. Could you elaborate at all on what that feeling felt like?
Like I was being watched, but not in a scary way. Just like a presence, and knowing that I needed to be respectful.
Thank you.
So we have a question back here.
I am so sorry to ask a depressing adult question if this is the last question.
We might have time for one more. Let's
Yeah,
see.
maybe like one more after we. My question is, you know, you talked about a lot of the threats, especially from humans, and I'm curious, you know, from your perspectives, we've just had some of the hottest and driest summer and winter and summer preceding that. You know, we're seeing that drying up a lot of our waterways, and I can imagine this is adding additional stress onto these animals. And I'm wondering, you know, what you're seeing in your work, if that kind of tracks, or if there's, you know, just things are being experienced in different ways. So I was just kind of curious if you could comment towards just, we're living in a world of extremes and how that influences this.
Yeah, you want to go?
Yeah, I can add a little bit. Thank you, Nathan. It's a great question because things are changing, and we're oscillating between periods of long, extreme drought. It's not just drought, it's heat and drought. And then there's pulses of rain. So on the reserve, we just experienced, so in the larger context of about the last 4 years since 2020, most of the time it's been exceptionally dry and hot. The last 18 months were really dry and hot, but the rains came strong at the later summer. A couple big hurricanes, one of the wetter years we've had in many years, and the ecosystem rebounded. And it's amazing how much resilience is embedded. And it's an open-ended question. How much resilience is there? Where are the thresholds? Everywhere we looked when we were there in October, butterflies filled the space. The water was in the system more than had been seen in years. and that was juxtaposed with massive oak mortality. Thus far on the jaguar story, we're not seeing necessarily a change in numbers or necessarily a change in habitat distribution. We're seeing a lot more black bear sightings, probably coming down from the mountains, and not necessarily seeing more predation. In some cases, yes, in terms of cattle by jaguars. So it's a changing landscape, and there's kind of this seesaw effects. But higher up than the predator chain, we haven't seen as much direct impacts on the jaguars, but within the ecosystem, a lot of changes. It's absolutely something we're monitoring with our partners and our scientific staff.
Thank you.
So here's the question back here. And it's not going to be depressing at all, is it? No! Here you go. This is the capper right here.
So jaguars are absolutely beautiful, amazing animals. The movie also showed us black bears making a comeback. What are some of the other animals that might have a chance of coming back that we should care about that maybe we haven't paid a lot of attention to but should?
In the world of making movies, in the business of making movies, too many times you get those charismatic animals become like the main force. And I say too many times in the sense of like, it's easy to look at an adorable kitten or a bear cub and be like, oh my gosh, I want to do everything to save or whatever exists around this thing. We should be paying attention to all animals, you know, especially like invertebrates. Like we learn so much from invertebrates. Like there's so many animals that need their own spotlight. So I would say all animals, and from my side of things, I try and like, this is a special case film for us. But in other films we make, a lot of times we have characters that you've never heard of, and we want you to have never heard of that character, whether it's a salmon fly or a different perspective. Yeah, I love that people love salmon flies. I like wear my head around town and people are like, salmon flies are rad, and I'm like, awesome. But I mean, like that's my job also as a storyteller, is to like highlight those kinds of things. And so like, I wouldn't say there's a single species. It's nice to pick the higher ones because they have that cascading effect, or they're a keystone species. So if you can save them, then down the chain, you're helping all the other animals that they're not below them. They're just a part of that system, and they're dependent on that system just as much as the keystone species are. But that's a good question. Thank you for that.
Just to give you maybe a couple of specifics with everything, yes. And beavers, bighorn sheep. This is the northernmost range of the Jaguar Preserve of military macaws, guacamayas, and they're there. Eagles, yeah, so there's some great.
Yeah, we also have twice as many ocelots on the reserve than jaguars. So, and then I always like to give a shout out to the animals that we refer to as pests. Some of them haven't even been studied. Like the hognose skunk could be critically endangered, but there's not much funding to study skunks. So, you know, when you see those animals that choose to be our friends, the coyotes, the raccoons, the skunks, I appreciate that. I mean, they're willing to be in our space with us. That's special. So, yeah, all the animals, of course.
Maybe we could end on fun the skunks. There's an eager last questioner over here, and this is the last one. Yeah. Then we'll, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. And because we all have this wonderful opportunity, I wanted to share an opportunity for you to come down and stand with us and speak out. February 20th and February 21st, we will be at the Wall building and the area where they're blasting right now, the national park. And because you all can't, these pictures don't give it any justice if you haven't witnessed it yourself. So we'd like you to join with us, witness, and stand with us, if you will. And we have information out in the lobby for you to follow, where details will be determined and shared on our Instagram. Just wanted to comment that. Thank you, Ryan, for letting me put it out there.
Thank you.
Ryan, could you, this is like a, kind of like a movie theater question. So you're making movies that clearly spark the interest of two Zonans. So could you give us a little teaser about what you're working on next? Is it possible?
We're in the business side of things. We're seeking funding for a new series that is focused on this incredible state. So we're hoping to do a series with PBS. I can speak my mind, right, Alan? Okay. Starting a new series in development right now that's focused on all the different biomes in Arizona. This is an incredibly diverse, one of the most beautiful places. I'm going to spend the next 3 probably years working on this with Alan back there and hopefully some other local folks in the audience. We're trying to do an Arizona-only crew, very independent running this. Each episode would be focused on every one of the biomes in the state. So there's 6 of the 7 biomes in the world in Arizona. Then we have a behind-the-scenes episode, as well as a conservation and action episode, because we need to highlight the 5,000 plus organizations in this state as much as we can. So you will see us here again in the future, telling stories for Arizona and telling stories for the wild. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for the panelists. Thanks everybody for showing up.